didn't catch that. Could you try again?
Right. It's a good Monty Python episode. So I'm sorry the film didn't play through recording, but we're recording now. And what I'm now going to do is share the PowerPoint presentation, which gives you a bit more insight into his work, but also it gives you how he sees vision. So let me share that.
Okay. I'm going to just sort of talk about the that film briefly, because that was for WEX Photographics, and I was approached about 3 years ago for a campaign where they wanted to approach people that have got disabilities or mental health issues, but are also photographers, which is why it's called More Than an Image. And so they wanted to sort of highlight photographers that, you know, come from different backgrounds, and I was one of the people to sort of participate in the campaign. But yeah, it was a really good campaign, that.
Cool. So what we'll do in the Boris Johnson way, Ian, is if you go next slide. I'll do it really slowly, so you're not going to be seeing images that are way beyond. So let me start this PowerPoint. And I'll just.
I didn't take that one.
That's my wife and my wife's friend. Right, here we go. Just play it. Right, okay. So
I just want to say hello, everyone. Thanks for coming today and hanging out and watching this talk. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it and yeah, get something from it, hopefully.
And plenty of questions as well.
Yes, please do bombard me with as many questions as possible. None are too silly or too serious, or just ask anything you want.
Great, thank you.
All right.
So next slide.
Next slide. Okay. So this is a kind of a basic representation of a normal person's eyesight. A normal human being had 120 degrees of eyesight, which is quite a wide angle from what I know. I think people tell me that if you put your arms out, you can see your hands. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so that's a wide angle. So that's 120 degrees. I'm now down to 5 degrees. So I've lost a massive peripheral window of sight. So now it's more like a pinhole photography, ironically, instead of wide angles. So yeah, I've lost 95% of my eyesight since the age of 15. And my condition is something that I found out when I was 15 years old. I mean, I was already diagnosed profoundly deaf from the age of 3 months old. And I thought that was going to be the only massive problem that I was going to have sort of dealing with my life. But yeah, at the age of 15, I discovered that I wasn't really seeing as much as my friends were. And yeah, when I was told at 15, I've got a condition called Usher syndrome, retina pigmentosa type 2, which is quite a mouthful. It stands for, well, short for RP, or tunnel vision, as it's known in layman terms. So yeah, it gives you a bit of an idea of what I'm seeing, because yeah, so pinhole photography in a lot of ways. Any question before going to the next slide?
That's pretty comprehensive. It's obviously, it's sad to hear, but it sounds like, you know, a lot of talent has emerged as a result of it, almost. A very unique style and talent from what I've seen.
Yeah, cheers. I think for me, it's a case of wrestling with the limitations that I have. So, you know, I either sit back and do nothing, or I sort of work with the limitations and, you know, try and sort of coerce as much of, you know, creativity out of the small window that I have, really. So it's hard work, it's stressful, it's difficult, but you know, I kind of see that very small window of sight as a gift that I still have, and I intend to use it as much as possible, really, until I can't. But yeah.
And also, Ian, you're colourblind, aren't you? So your shots are all in black and white.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, generally, I think probably 99% of my work is black and white, because I am colourblind. I have done some colour photography, which is very rare, which is quite nice, really. So when that does happen, you know, it's a nice thing that happens, really. But generally, when I do colour, 1 minute it's one set of colours, 2 minutes later it's something completely different, and so it constantly changes. So that's why I work with black and white, so I can work with the tones, the shadows, the highlight, the contrast. Yeah, it's just much more manageable, really, to work with.
Okay, so we're going to the next slide.
Yeah.
Next slide.
This is actually quite a recent photo. This is a young producer. She's at uni, and this was actually taken after 3 days of filming. And yeah, basically she wanted some photos done of the whole team, and literally I gave everyone 5 minutes, and actually she was a great model, very photogenic, lots of attitude, which I like. But yeah, it's one of my favourites. I mean, you can't really see her eyes, but I'm just a big fan of the shadows and sort of atmosphere and sort of the mystery behind who this character is. Next slide, please. This is a lot of my photography that's done in the studio. Where I work in the studio, it's much more controlled. So it's a lot easier to work with. Who's that in the background?
Oh, heckler. A heckler already.
Yeah, Matthew is he's a teacher, but also a musician from Southend, and he's one of the many faces that I know of from Southend. We've got many talented musicians, which can you believe in Southend. But yeah, again, he kind of has that sort of old school 70s look. Obviously, he's got an awesome beard, a bit like the guy down here. I'm looking, he's got a big beard. Myself, I can't grow a beard. But yeah, I mean, for this one, I used like a handmade light. I actually got an old light and wrapped a paper cone to sort of make the light much more harsher and sort of, yeah, almost blown out in a way. And that's why it looks like that, really. Any questions on Matt?
And nice guitar, though.
Yeah, I think that was a 1960 something Telecaster.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one that he uses quite a lot.
And you play guitar as well, I hasten to add as well. So he's a mean Hendrix impersonator.
Yeah.
Next one, shall we do?
Yeah, go on, do the next one.
Yeah, on.
This guy, actually, this image is quite powerful in a lot of different ways because it kind of represents what my eyesight looks like in a lot of ways. You know, having vision in the middle and a lot of black peripheral sort of darkness. But yeah, this guy, he's an actor, and it was part of a theatre play that I was documenting and photographing. And this is one of the reasons why I love photography. And I was thinking about this last night when I was in bed, and sort of thought that it's amazing how a camera has sort of led me to meet so many different people, from, you know, the theatre to musicians to, you know, political events, you know, every different background you can name. That camera has managed to sort of, I don't know, sort of, what's the word? sort of, yeah, connect me with sort of unusual individuals. Next slide, please. This is Lisa Stansfield, who I must admit had a bit of a crush on when I was younger. And she was at the Southend Film Festival a few years back, because that was another job that I used to do in Southend. I was a photographer who documented the film festival that happened over a period of 5 days. So you'd have like a gala night, and it would be like showing lots of different films from, you know, amateur to pro directors. And yeah, and she was one of the people that come along to the film festival, and took Lisa aside and literally only had probably, I think I remember, about 5 minutes with her. So I had to work really, really quickly. And but because she's an absolute, you know, professional, and yeah, she just was incredibly easy to photograph. Yeah, it was quite an amazing experience, really. Yeah, beautiful lady. Any questions on Lisa?
Did she sing "Been Around the World" for you?
I
was spinning in my mind, if I'm honest.
was expecting that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was, you know, inside I was like, oh my god, this is Lisa Stansfield, you know, but on the outside I was, you know, very much the professional photographer. But inside, yeah, you're always going to be that little cringy fan. Oh my god, it's someone famous. But
you've given her a very 40s look there, Ian.
I was going to say very film noir.
Yeah, I think what she was wearing that night, you know, and the way that her hair was, you know, that it was almost that kind of Art Deco, you know, sort of era as well, which I'm a big fan of. So, yeah, I mean, she looks great. Her hair looked great, and I think the way that I photographed does have a lot of old noir cinematic feel to it. So, yes. I like it. It's one of my favourite images.
That's a good one, man. Next slide.
I must mention we were both drunk as well, because it was the party at the film festival. But it's amazing what you can do when you switch it on.
Yeah.
So
confident.
Okay, next slide. Oh, this is another studio shot. I kind of enjoy dressing people up like they're almost like they're my dolls, or my Ken dolls, or Barbie dolls. And Flo, she's this really quite shy, introvert personality, who is actually, she's a puppet maker, and she does a lot of work for you know, people like Brian Froud, who did all the puppets for Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. So yeah, she's a very talented girl, but I wanted to dress her up as some kind of Tim Burton Victorian-esque sort of character, quite stern. But really, it was all about the rose in this picture for some reason. But yeah, I love styling. I love dressing people up and digging things out in the wardrobe. Yeah, any questions on Flo?
Looks a bit like Susie from Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah,
maybe the eyebrows.
Better
looking.
Yeah, she's a really cool character. Very yeah. I mean, I think like with photography, I'm just really interested in people. You know, like, I mean, like the guy who's looking up to the ceiling, he's got a beard, and like, you know, I could think that he'll make a good photograph because he's got an awesome beard. You know, I just love people and their personalities, and that's what photography really is. It's about connecting and sort of making you know, a piece of art. You know, but yeah, I love it. Next slide.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Do you have a hair and makeup person who you like to work with, or do you ask people to be sort of creative themselves? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, like with the last photo with Flo, I did have a makeup artist and a hairstylist. and I've got a lady that I work with quite a few times, and yeah, I really like her style and what she does makeup wise, and she totally gets what I kind of want, really, because I'm not really sort of that mainstream. I like to be a little bit offbeat.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I love working, you know, with other creative people. You know, it's very much a team effort, really, and you know, it makes a great day to, you know, all round do makeup, hair, photography, styling.
Yeah, it all really works. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I'm terrible with compliments. I'm like, oh.
It just makes me want to give you more compliments.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this photo is actually quite a new one. This is from when I went up to Hyde Park protests a few weeks back for Black Lives Matter. And I'll be honest, it was kind of the first time I've been out for a long time. I've been sort of in lockdown for a good couple of months, and sort of made a decision that, yeah, I'm going to go up there to document and photograph this event. And I know that everyone had very different opinions about what you should be doing and what you, I don't know, can't be doing and stuff like that. But I think as a photographer, you're always going to be in places where you probably shouldn't be. I think it's part of photography. You're a little bit rebellious in a lot of ways. And to me, it was a very important day to document. And I'm not going to lie, it was an amazing experience. I mean, as a blind person going up London on my own and walking into a very large crowd, it's possibly one of the terrifying things that I do. But when I've got that camera with me, it's like a friend. It keeps me grounded, and I don't know, it gives me purpose. I think if I was standing there on my own, you know, visually impaired, I think I'd be freaking out a little bit. But photography, it allows me to connect, you know, it bridges that gap. Yeah, and this shot, yeah, I love this shot because, you know, it's got everything in it, really. And it's one of those shots, I remember I was facing the person that was talking, and I spun around completely to face everyone else, which I really like doing because you're staring at everyone. You know, you get a really good vibe for what's going on in the crowd, and yeah, it pretty much just sort of said what it's all about, really. Any questions on the protest pictures?
No, but you captured it perfectly well.
Yeah, I mean, it was yeah, it was very peaceful throughout the whole 4 hours that I was there. So, yeah, I just think it's very important to be documenting, you know, certain elements of, you know, history.
Next slide.
Next slide. Yeah, it's another one from Hyde Park. I think I was really fascinated with the amount of I don't know what you call them, banners, protest balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, just how many people were very verbal in what they wanted to say, and sort of reading everybody's message. Yeah, it was just fascinating, really. You know, it's history in the making, really. You know, I'm very pro Black Lives Matter, and you know, it's something that we need to sort of, you know, acknowledge properly rather than trying to sweep it under the carpet. I think, you know, once we acknowledge the history, you know, things can improve. I know I've learned a lot in the last month. Yeah. Any questions?
No.
I'm noticing that I don't know if it was intentional, but the people in the photographs are mostly white, which shows what a multi-ethnic movement it is. Don't know whether that was intentional or not, or whether it was just sort of, you know, in terms of the day, the proportion of people is mainly white.
Yeah, it's. I'll be honest. I'm really glad that you you're the first person that's picked up on that. Yeah, it was almost quite a conscious decision in what photos that I showed. But yeah, I was, you know, I wouldn't say shocked, but yeah, the amount of white people that were there in support, you know, was interesting and quite fascinating. Because I think a lot of people just think it's a protest with black people and that's it. But there was every background that you can think of, every culture. You know, I think if you had that same thought process, you're on the same page, really. So, but yeah, it was a very eye-opening day, really.
Yeah.
Electric. Okay, next slide.
I think it's no. Yeah, this is. So this was another protest that was in Southend, so it's more of a local protest, and he was doing a talk outside the forum, and again, you know, it was, I think, because I, you know, sort of seen so much history and been a lover of photography and seeing the photos from, you know, Martin Luther King and the protest that he did, you know, it was almost felt very similar. So, you know, I really wanted to sort of capture the essence of the day, really. And, you know, yeah, he was, yeah, did an amazing talk that day. Any questions on this guy or photo?
What was he sort of saying? Was it sort of a speech around culture, or was it based? It looks almost like he's preaching.
Yeah, he was a very. He must do quite a lot of talk because he was very sort of slow in his delivering and sort of trying to sort of get across sort of pointing sort of you know, issues and problems. Yeah, and again, though it was a local protest, you know, everyone was on the same page, and I think that people acknowledged that, you know, it might be different here in this country, and I know it's different in America, but there's racism, you know, in all aspects of the corner of the globe. And I think, you know, it's just trying to improve the situation that we have going on, really. I know it's a very difficult topic for some people, you know, but for me, it's not that difficult, really. It's not that difficult.
No, it's difficult, but it isn't. I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean? It's not really that hard to get your head around. I think a lot of people have sort of been brought up. I mean, I know I was brought up on a very one-sided sort of story, you know, in school. It was only when I left school that, you know, I did my own research on history, and I'm still, you know, getting shocked, you know, when I'm finding out about certain things. And yeah, everywhere was awful back in the day, but now is the time to, you know, sort those problems out, acknowledge it, re-educate, and it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. Anyway, next slide. Oh, another one. This one I did in colour. And I connected with this kid. He was probably only about 10, 11. And I was just really fascinated, like, what was going through his mind. Because I think he was with his dad or his uncle or something. But I was just really sort of curious, you know, what was going through his mind. But purposely blurred because I wanted to have the banner in the background sort of explaining, you know, what was going on, really. But yeah, it's one of those images I just really like. Next slide. Another crowd shot. Again, you know, you can see the diversity of people, you know, in this shot, and they looked really crowded. People were actually quite social distance, which actually made it quite easy for me to maneuver. Because I was just sort of slipping under people's arms, you know, just sort of just being a little hobbit. Just sort of tiptoeing, you know, just getting past everyone, trying to get up close. And yeah, there's something about a crowd mentality that is really exciting. You know, there's no getting away from it. There's something really exciting about capturing history and time. Anyone got any questions on this picture?
No, great one. I like the foreground when it's again you've got the diffusing and then it goes back to the banners at the top. It's almost
yeah. I was using what was it, my 70 to 200 Canon lens, which is a great lens for this kind of environment, really. And I always love like honing into people that are staring back at the camera. I love being able to sort of see if I can get people to be looking directly at you, and I can see a guy right in the middle.
Yeah. And that's where your eyes go, isn't it? Towards who's staring.
That's it. Next one. Again, this is a young lady who was very, very vocal, and everybody was joining in, chanting, and it was almost very tribal. It was, I could hear the chants from all the way outside of Hyde Park. It was that loud, it was immense. But again, it was just trying to, capture the moment of that day, really. And she was full of beans. Any questions on this picture?
Yeah, it's a really, really good one. I went to the Parliament protest.
That was on Sunday, wasn't it?
Was it on a Sunday? It was on the weekend. Yeah, you're right. The following weekend. And there was lots of people with megaphones. I found it extraordinary how passionate and actually how articulate the people were who were speaking through these megaphones. It was really, what they had to say was so powerful. It wasn't sort of nonsense, like chants and stuff like that. It was really, really powerful, really articulate, intelligent stuff that people from all walks of life were shouting. It was great.
Definitely. Though I'm 42, I feel like I'm one of these people that's kind of in between a couple of generations, like, because I was around when there was no internet, smartphones, but now I'm around in that sort of time. So I kind of experienced both worlds, and I actually love the younger generation. Like, I love, where they're going and how they think. And a lot of people think they're snowflakes and all that kind of stuff, which I hate, because all they're really doing is voicing pretty much what everybody else has been thinking for the last 50 years, I think the younger generation are just much more vocal and just not going to put up with it anymore. So,
great point.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, I think this is the last one of the protests. Again, this is one in Southend, and again, I love this picture because it's got this contrast of black white. You've got this white guy in the background who's obviously clapping, and he's all pro. And I love doing photos where people are out of focus, because to me it gives it that much more atmosphere and sort of cinematic feel. But having his hand up in the air, it's that kind of sort of moving forward and sort of in an agreement with a lot of things. So it's a great photo. Next slide.
Yep.
This is Callum. Probably, well, let me explain. So recently in my photography career, I've always wanted to be involved with people that got disabilities, because obviously I've got disabilities myself, and I know the kind of discrimination that is involved with disability, because though I look like a normal person, a lot of people are not aware that I've got disabilities. So it's something I'm very passionate about, and sort of at the moment, like with a lot of things that are in the change. This guy here, he's actually got Down syndrome, so he's got verbal Down syndrome, and he's a model for a casting agency for a company called Zebedee, who are an agency that only take on people that have disability, whether it's Down syndrome, in a wheelchair, mental health, blind people, anything you can think of, they take you on. And it's a brilliant thing because they're practically the only company in the UK that do this, which is quite shocking when you think about it, because you've got millions of disabled people that are not even remotely involved or haven't been involved in mainstream media for a long time. And you know, we're on the verge of changing that at the minute. So and I did this shoot back in February before COVID happened, and for me it's about photographing people with disabilities, but it's not about their disabilities, it's just photographing them, making them look cool, and just being themselves really, and showing that, you know, even with people that got disabilities, they're still cool, you know, they still look glamorous, and you know, we still rock, and you know, we can be a part of mainstream media. So yeah, this was one of the first shots. He loves this photo.
Love the eyebrow.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because he's known for his eyebrow, you know, the famous eyebrow. You know, he looks very suave and he's got a bit of swagger. And that's really important to me, to show that, you know, rather than just focusing on, you know, the disabilities, which has always been the case, you know, it's always been sort of the pitifying or tokenistic sort of style of, you know, photographing people with disabilities. And it's like, we don't want you to feel sorry for us. We just want to be a part of society. That's it. Again, it's another simple thing that, you know, it should be simple, but it's not. But we are literally at the beginnings of that change. And I don't know if you've seen recently, but there's a girl called Ellie who's been in the news, and she's a Zebedee model. She's a Zebedee model.
I saw last night. Really lovely.
You know, so that's a massive deal. You know? Yeah. So she's she's making history. So same like with this guy Callum. Yeah, any questions on this photo? I think I've got more of these photos. So, but yeah, if you've got any questions about Callum.
I think you've picked up on something, a movement that is happening slowly, but as far as I'm concerned, not happening quick enough. I mean, I absolutely love this shot. I think the composition is great. The wardrobe, as you say, you've really caught his character, which is awesome. And I definitely don't feel like this is done enough in the mainstream. I think M&S, I don't know if you saw it. I think it was about a year ago, 18 months ago, they released a fashion ad, and they cast a Down syndrome lady as a model in the fashion ad. And as you say, she was a model in the ad. She wasn't a Down syndrome person in an ad, which is what I feel like Lloyds Bank did in that tokenistic way with their ad, with their ad. But with this M&S ad, she was an artist in the ad in her own right, and I just thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you've done here, which is really lovely to see.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, you'd be surprised, like when I talked to, because the people that run Zebedee, there were just two ordinary ladies. One was a teacher, one was a carer. And they were having a conversation, sort of saying, you know, why don't we see more people on TV, you know, with disabilities? Like, you know, why is that? But you'd be surprised, a lot of big companies are still very hesitant to showcase that side, which is quite shocking, really. I mean, like big brands. I mean, the only people I know so far, River Island, they're totally on board. You know, they're very, you know, yeah, you know, it's no big deal to them, but there's a lot of big brands that are still tiptoeing, you know, and still apprehensive about, you know, using people with disabilities. But I think, you know, the fact that it started and we're moving forward, I would imagine probably in 20 years' time, you know, it'll be a thing of the past. So, well, that's the idea anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The Undateables is obviously a good program to showcase them, and I always root for everyone to, even you, Ian. I rooted for you. But I think it's just the one program that I really captures my heart and melts my heart.
It does. you know, and I had a lot of people who had problems like with the program, the Undatables. I mean, the discrimination with disability it's insane. I think that's probably why I have a lot of better understanding, you know, with discrimination, because it's not pleasant. It doesn't taste good. Yeah, it's just an awful experience, really. And even when I went on the Undatables, I had people saying, "Why did you go on there? You know, you're normal. You look normal." But this is a problem, is that I don't fit in a particular box. I don't fit in the normal sighted box, and I don't fit in the totally blind box. And they're the only two boxes that exist in this world at the minute. So I'm basically trying to make more boxes to show that, you know, blind people do different things in different ways. Like, for instance, I've got a friend who lives in America, and he's a skateboarder, and he's blind, and he does it with a white cane. It's awesome. So it sort of shows people that, you know, people do things in different ways. This young guy, he's an actor. He's done some work in the Old Vic, and he's visually impaired. He's a white cane user. And yeah, he's one of the probably only blind people in the Old Vic that do acting. Unfortunately, he's not working at the minute because all theatre is pretty much out the window at the moment. But yeah, any questions on the?
Oh, he looks really remarkably young.
He is.
Yeah.
He's young, but very, very confident. I think he's probably about 10, 11 in this photo. But he's done copious amount of acting on the big stage. Very confident young chap. I would like to hope that he will go a long way in his career. So, but yeah, you know, it's kind of because like we live in a world where everything is all perfect. You know, people's eyes, you know, looking in the same direction, or you know, everyone looks, you know, perfect. And I don't want to say like imperfection, because they're not imperfection, but I'm trying to just be realistic in sort of portraying people in a real way, really, and try and get people to not be scared of what they see, you know, if they don't understand it. So yeah, any questions?
No,
Everyone's,
I think a beautiful shot.
an empty chair. Oh, he's back.
Who's the empty chair? Right, next one.
Next slide. You might have saw this tree in the short video. This is called the dead tree, and it's one of my favourite trees. Excuse me. Though it's a dead tree, it's got so much character. I absolutely love it, and yeah, I literally spent a whole day doing long exposure. So I think this is something like a 3-4 minute long exposure. But yeah, it's one of my favourite photos. There's something about dead things that look really interesting. You know, it's a bit Tim Burton-esque, I guess. Any questions on this photo?
Is that local to you?
Yeah, it's this is in Essex, a place called Gusted Hall Woods, and it's a place where I've often walked, you know, through difficult times. It's a place that I can walk, you know, great for healing. But yeah, there is another story that goes with this tree, but I might go on a little bit too long. But I built a little hobbit house with a friend of mine, which I thought only a couple of people would see it. And this hobbit house became so well known that it ended up on the radio, and people were visiting this hobbit house that I created. Children were coming down, writing letters. But yeah, it's a fascinating place. I love it around there. It's awesome. Next slide. Ooh. This is something I've been doing quite recently, is sort of taking an in-depth look into nature. This is actually outside my back window, so I haven't actually got that far to go. But yeah, I love playing around with telephoto lens, and I love depth of field, and I don't know what it is, but I think it's from the first time I remember looking through a pair of binoculars when I was a kid. My granddad had a pair of binoculars. I don't know about you, but I remember when looking through the binoculars, I don't know, it just blew my mind. I felt like a Marvel superhero, that you could have this ability to see, like, zoom in, you know, far away. Yeah, I just love looking through those binoculars. And it's almost similar, you know, with photography, you know, experimenting with the lens. But yeah, I'm kind of doing sort of abstract nature art at the moment. I like to do a bit of everything, really. Any question?
No, you're totally self-taught as well, aren't you, Ian?
Yeah, all self-taught. I'd never gone to uni or college. I'm not a sitting in the classroom type of person. Everyone's different, you know. I wasn't born to sit in a classroom. I need to be out there dabbling, practicing, you know, making lots of mistakes, and trying to figure out how to improve, you know, the next set of photos, really. So yeah, it's all self-taught. And we live in such an amazing time now. We can just go and Google, and I guarantee somebody's either written or made a video about the problem that you've had. You know, so we live in a really great time if you just, you know, have a bit of enthusiasm and do a little bit of research, and you don't have to sit in a classroom or do homework. And I hate homework.
Next one.
Next one.
I think it's the last one, actually, man.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, this is quite an old picture, one of my early photos of Liverpool Street. I've always loved this photo because, let's be honest, we all know Liverpool Street is really hectic, busy, a nightmare, stressful. But I kind of wanted to, excuse me, got a hiccup. Trying to capture Liverpool Street in more of a serene way, really, that, you know, it's almost peaceful, and, you know, sort of, you know, I love the whole idea of, you know, people going to and from to different destinations, and, you know, wondering where these people are going or what's happening in their lives. And but yeah, I do love motion. I do like motion in my photos. Any questions on Liverpool Street?
Looks like they're underwater, doesn't it? Kind of sitting below a pond.
Yeah.
Nice shot.
Yeah, it was quite weird. I was walking across the bridge, and yeah, I just remember, oh my god, yeah, that's going to make a cracking photo. And I put the camera on the ledge. I didn't have a tripod, unfortunately, so I managed to put it on a ledge, and I think I did like 20-second long exposure. But yeah, you know, it worked, and yeah, I sold quite a few copies of this.
Oh.
Hello.
Blah. Right.
Yeah, I think that's the last one.
Shall we go into questions? Let me just see. Hold on. Exit.
You can ask questions about my eyes, or you can ask anything you want.
Well, it's been marvelous. It's been really an amazing talk, Ian, you know.
It really has.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really, really interesting to see a good sort of body of work. I have one question.
Right.
It feels like you have a preference for portraits. Would you say that you like to shoot people over things?
Yeah, I think for a long while I did do a lot of portraiture, and I think sometimes it's a bit dangerous being stuck to one element of photography. So yeah, I'm always keen to sort of branch out and experiment, and I think by doing the nature sort of photography, yeah, I just sort of wanted to experiment more, really, with not just photographing people, but, you know, life and nature and historic events. You know, I love journalistic photos, you know. So I like to dabble in sort of different areas, really. You know, I like to sort of, I like to challenge myself, you know, not to get too comfortable. But I do love people, you know, I do enjoy, could often have like conversation before we do a shoot, you know, it's all very casual. And in that time when I'm talking to them, I'm sort of gauging who they are as people and sort of studying, you know, their faces and their body language, and that's something that I can work with in the shoot. So, but yeah.
It's interesting that in your sort of nature shots, there's quite a clear style already. Like you were saying, it's almost sort of otherworldly. Like you sort of like you were talking about Tim Burton. I totally see that. It's just really interesting to see such a clear style so soon.
Yeah, I think I set out when I did photography that, you know, I didn't want to be like other people, because you can never really be like other people. You can be inspired by other people, but I kind of wanted to take all my favorite elements in life, you know, my, you know, stuff like I say, Tim Burton film, you know, I like obscure, I like because I think I've always been on the outside looking in. I'm very familiar of that outside world, and yeah, it's just like you know, almost like say dressing up people and sort of digging out their personality in different ways, really. Any other questions?
Well, one really just haven't got a timeline of when your site is going to completely go. Have the doctors said anything, or it's just wait and see?
Yeah, it's literally wait and see, really. I mean, I can tell you, when the doctor told me at the age of 15, you know, I can still remember it crystal clear. And he said, you know, your eyes are literally just going to deteriorate very slowly over a period of time. So that I was 15 then, I'm now 42. And so, yeah, it has dramatically gotten a lot smaller. And I think from that moment, I had like a bit like an Alice in Wonderland again, that unusual sort of obscure environment. But I had this clock on my shoulder sort of ticking away, going, come on, you got to get this done. You got to do all these things before the curtains draw. So yeah, I've had a lot of pressure to try and do as much as possible, you know, before the eyes go completely dark. So, you know, it's been very important for me to, you know, sort of achieve or push myself, or, you know, for instance, I've done scuba diving. You know, I wanted to do scuba diving. I did some photography underwater. And so, yeah, it's about doing as much as possible and really appreciating your eye. Because I know that, you know, naturally a lot of people don't appreciate their eyesight to the full extent. You know, and I have to remind myself, though, that I've got difficult disabilities. I'll remind myself I've got legs, I've got arms, you know, I'm still able to, you know, get out and about. So always try and look on the positive side. And, you know, you can always dig out a positive in a bad negative. That's how I always try to view situations, really. So.
Ian, are the medics able to offer you any treatment in the future?
Well, at the minute we are at the stage where it's all trial and experiments at the minute. I think the best way I explain it is in aviation terms. You know, back in the old days when all those old clips where people try to make airplanes and they're like wacky, crazy ideas of airplanes that never really worked, or they were like bouncing up in the air, or they've got 100 winds and all that kind of stuff. We're at that stage. We're at trial experimenting. So yeah, unfortunately, you know, a lot of people, you know, have put themselves forward to have, you know, I say not cures, but experiments, and they haven't gone particularly well. So it's not something I will put myself forward to doing. because I really want to retain what I have. I think until there's something which I would imagine probably, I don't know, 80, 100 years time, you know, it'll be a thing of the past, because unfortunately there's 500 plus eye condition blindness. So it's a lot of conditions to get through and to cure. But, you know, there'll be a time where there'll be, you know, stem cell treatment. So yeah, we're at very early stages, but yeah, very yeah, it's not something I want to put my eyes forward for in a minute. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, we're on the right path, and you know, we're sort of finding out what can be done. They know what they need to do, they just need to find a way. So, any other questions?
Hi there, Ian. I don't know if you remember me.
You're
From
Anthony.
school. That's right, yes. So you mentioned, sorry about the background, I work in my shed, so but yeah, you mentioned about school, and back then we were done art GCSE together, didn't we? And yes, we're no fan of homework, but yeah, admired your work back then, and a huge fan of what you do now, and fully support you and admire you. So just want to say well done.
Thank you, Anthony.
All right.
Anthony is, yeah, like I say, yeah, he's somebody I used to go to school with, and yeah, we used to sit in art class during bits of toast or fruit or whatever. But yeah, I've never been a fan of homework. I don't think that's ever going to change. I think that's just how I am, unfortunately. But yeah.
Is that why you go to the studio now to do it instead of doing it from home? Or it's not homework then, is it? So
yeah,
good seeing you. All right.
Yeah, cheers, man. Thank you. Oh, nice to see you, Anna.
And you do paintings as well, don't you? So you've got a complete guitar, painting, photography, the whole works.
Yeah.
Admirable.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
I wouldn't say that. I would not say that.
Yeah.
Ian, we've got a couple of agents looking in on you as well. Peter in the corner there. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Peter. Where's Peter? I can't see.
Hello. Hi.
Oh, Peter. Cool.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. Like I say, yeah, I do like doing painting. That was probably one of the first things I ever did. Really, was drawing with pencils. I think when I look at my black and white drawings, you know, it's quite similar to my photography. A lot of contrast, shadows, highlight. So there's obviously something that's been planted in my mind, you know, from a young age. And I think it does stem from watching Charlie Chaplin film when I was younger, because it was almost like, because back then there weren't any subtitles on TV programs, and being profoundly deaf, I could never really understand what people were saying. So watching silent movies back in the late 80s on Channel 4, yeah, it was kind of almost my foot into, you know, that kind of look, that old black and white, noir, grainy, very high contrast sort of style, really. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Ian, are you looking to publish these protest pictures, or will you publish them or exhibit? Or
well, I'll be honest, I really could do it with an agent. Yeah, I could do with working with someone to help. Yeah, because I would really love to publish a lot of these photos, because my work hasn't been published online. But yeah, I'd like to do a book, like maybe like a coffee table book of something. But that's not an area that I'm very familiar with. So maybe someone out there that knows something that can help me.
Have you been in touch with people like the Photographers Gallery, or, you know, the Observer, or the, you know, the papers, just to showcase the work in context with all, you know, it's not just one voice, it's not just the black and white, it's just discrimination, you know, because you've got disability, you have Black Lives Matter. It's speaking from the other, you know, these multiple voices. Have you approached anyone with the work as a body? Okay.
No, I haven't. Yeah, this is where I could do with an extra mind or sort of assistance in sort of pushing the photography out there in the right places, really. I mean, I've done some online sort of articles about, you know, photography and my eyesight condition.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite a small article, and yeah, it could do with sort of expanding a lot more, because it's, you know, disabilities, like I say, it's a lot to do with discrimination. You know, it's a whole different reality that people experience, and I think when you don't have disabilities, yeah, you're quite sort of oblivious to the other realities that exist. It's only when you've got a disability you suddenly step into it and you're like, oh my God, I didn't realise there were so many problems. Yeah, it's very layered. And again, I think it's a bit like it's almost like re-educating people. I think, again, you know, I was brought up with very basic.
Is that the cat?
I think it might be the cat. I think my cat's trying to get in. Let me in. What was I saying?
To re-educate. You were saying to re-educate and to re-educate the people. But I think the disability discrimination, that's, you know, that's a really interesting area, a field of photography that you're sort of covering. It's just, I was just curious to see, you know, whether you had taken it sort of, you know, the broadsheets or the photographer's gallery, or, you know, whether you'd put it as a body of work with some.
Yeah, well,
people. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I totally agree. I think if there's a time when people are listening, the time is now more than ever, right? People are truly beginning to take heed of I guess, that connection between, you know, people who may be, like, in any way disenfranchised and in whatever manner, right? And and I think that's finally, you know, happening, like, more than it's ever happened. You know, it's quite amazing how this is happening. So so if there was ever a time to really sort of get people and make people aware of these things, it is truly now. It is without a doubt now, I would say. It's very inspirational stuff that he, you know.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I think, I mean, to be honest, this change really has only started in the last, I would say, probably 10 years, which is not that long when you think about it. And that is a lot to do with, you know, technology, social media, you know, Instagram, you know, Facebook, sort of broadening people's, well, their knowledge and what they thought was normal. And people are like, oh my God, you know, there's these whole other people that exist in this world, but they're not being shown, you know, as people. And it really annoys me. There's no reason why, you know, people with disabilities can't be included. And also, you know, it would just make life just easier for everyone, you know, to have that understanding. But it's a long process, and we're at the start at it at the minute. And like I say, I'm inspired by the younger generation. They've certainly helped me to sort of break boundaries or push boundaries. You know, I've had people sort of questioning me, sort of saying, well, you know, if you're blind, you know, how are you, you know, should you be using a camera? Should you be taking photos? Like, someone's asking me, should I be taking photos because I've got a disability? And I'm like, well, you know, what right do you have to tell me that I can or can't be taking photos?
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, in your case, your images are so beautiful, and they have such a unique perspective, you know, because they almost seem like more focused, you know, than, you know, they almost seem like aimed and focused in such a way that, you know, other people wouldn't have that same perspective, right? So it's such a beautiful thing to see. And so, you know, I don't think other people would have that type of vision, you know. It's almost like, in a sense, with you, your disability has become like a super ability, kind of, in a sense, you know, like something that has made it possible for you to see something that other people would not see. And so people like that have no right to tell you things like that, because, you know, what you're adding more, you know, to the world stage, what people are capable of noticing and seeing, you know, as a result of that. You know, I feel so. I find that very inspirational. Like,
definitely. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I mean, I've had a lot of. I think my favourite thing about, you know, been doing photography and sort of out as a blind photographer is I've noticed how many other visually impaired blind people who do photography as a hobby or, you know, fun, you know, they're thinking about doing, and they're like, oh, you know, thanks for, you know, doing photography, because they've had exactly the same, you know, judgmental stares, looks, you know, questioning looks, you know, well, how comes you've got a white cane but you're taking photos? It might sound like very small discrimination, but I can tell you that discrimination makes a person with disability feel absolutely awful.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, actually, no, maybe I will put that camera down, or I will put it away, because that's what the public expects. And probably, as Anthony probably knows, I'm a little bit of a rebel. I'm very much, you know, I kind of rebel against things that I don't think is right. You know, if you've got a disability and you think you can do it, you crack on, you know.
Yeah. Ian, they've you know, Aperture magazine, you know Aperture?
Aperture, no, I've not heard of that one, but
okay, it's a black and white, it's an American magazine. I'll send you a link via Andy. Now they have an area for visually impaired photographers. So there's a whole language, there's a whole platform. It's an American base. They have a foundation as well. So that may be perhaps a starting point. Yeah, so they have part of their ongoing sort of practice is to have visually impaired photographers, and they have courses and they have platforms to facilitate exhibitions and engagement. I'll send it to Andy, and Andy can share it with you. That may be, you know, to look at what other visually impaired photographers are doing, or, you know, just, you know, the work that is in the public domain.
Yeah, definitely.
They are very, Aperture is it's a magazine, and it's a foundation as well. So
definitely, yeah, if you can send that over, I would appreciate that.
Thanks, Sammy.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'll send it over.
From what you said, like, you know, as a photographer, to go and get a job somewhere in the studio, I've always had that sort of big obstacle, you know, to sort of turn up to an interview and say, you know, I'm actually a blind photographer. And yeah, for a lot of people, it was a bit of a, like, oh my God, I can't get my head around that. And I don't really fit in, you know, with normal photographers. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to just break all those boundaries so that everyone can be involved, you know, whether you're disabled or whatever colour you are, you know, if you take a photo, that's all that matters, you know, whether you're blind or whatever.
Well, it's the integrity of the work, isn't it? I mean, it's immaterial, you know, what site or colour or sex, you know, gender, any of they're immaterial. It's the work that you produce and the contribution that you make. I think, you know, that's
cool. Brilliant. Thank you.
A pleasure.
Any other questions?
That's brilliant. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you know that, man. It's been really good, and at least we become friends and continue to do so.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Ian.
So much. Really, really fascinating.
Thank you very, very much, Andy, and both of you. Really.
I told you half an hour wouldn't be long enough.
Yeah.
He said, 30 minutes. I went, that ain't going to be long enough.
Ian, thank you very much. I think the work is really really exquisite, and with a different focus that one doesn't normally see. It's really good.
Thank you. Yeah, if you want to get in touch with any work or stuff like that, let me know.
You will, yeah.
Sure.
Indeed.
Brilliant.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for everyone for attending.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Andy.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye.
Hello.